Hi everyone, and I am Haunting Girl, and this is my channel. My channel consists of places from the past and their history, but some of these places have something a little bit more than living history. The spirits of these areas still wander the world, some who died tragically, with, with others who have unfinished business. And Savannah, Georgia is one of many paranormal hotspots in America. Sit down, relax, and be prepared to listen. Savannah has three forts guarding the waterways against enemy attacks. The Fort Jackson, Fort Pulaski, are both sit at the mouth of the Savannah River, while Fort McAllister sat upon 10 million south of the city. 10 miles south of the city, on the banks of the Ogeechee River. Fort McAllister was a part of the from its sister forts, not only because of its location, but also its construction. While Pulaski and Jackson were brick and mortar fortifications, Fort McAllister was made of earth. The earthen walls were able to withstand over 7 bombardments from the Union ships, only falling when General Sherman arrived during his march to the sea, taking fort by land. Beneath the eastern fortifications, Fort McAllister was outfitted with a hospital, officer quarters, supplies, even emplacements, a massive mortar, and stockpiles of guns. After the war, Henry Ford bought the fort, and began restoring it with the help of Georgia Historical Commission. Today, the fort is a museum and part of Fort McAllister State Park. Tourists can stop by and visit the historical fort, but it wouldn't be wise to be aware of the permanence of ghosts. The brutal battles and heavy losses of the part of the Confederate left behind tons of corpses, and their spirits never left the fort. The most encountered ghost is that of a headless soldier named Major Belly, who was killed in the battle. At night, one might hear the sound of wounded soldiers crying in pain, soldiers yelling out commands, and the sounds of cannon fire in the distance. There's even a ghost of a cat that lives in the fort. Nobody knows where the feline phantom came from, but it seems perfectly at ease in the fort despite all the haunts. Fort McAllister sits on the southern bank of Ogeechee River, 10 miles south from the city of Savannah. The fort was built in 1861 and designed by Captain John McRaney. Shortly after building the fort in 1861, General Robert E. Lee inspected the structure and fortified the eastern walls. And if you guys remember my Gettysburg stories, General Robert E. Lee was one of the many generals in the in the Confederate Army. I almost said Union, and I would have been hit in the head for that one. This later proved to be a value amendment. The fort was built in sort of spiritual spiral in the center of the bomb-proof area that the house housed a hospital, supply station, barricades, offices for the superiors, and stockpile of weapons. Fort McAllister was built to house about 230 soldiers and have 7 cannons installations, including which fired a cannonball called Red Hot Shot. The cannonball would be glowing red with heat after being fired and could instantaneously set any wooden structures ablaze. There was also a 10-inch mortar set outside of the fort. The recoil from the mortar was strong that threatened to shake the dirt from the fortifications. Hence, its position in the premier of Fort McAllister. The fort's position on the Oakestry River made it very difficult for ships to enter or leave the river. The Confederate created mud dams and tunnels in the vicinity of the fort. Any ships entering the area would have been slowed down to tediously navigate the river while in range of Fort McAllister's cannons. Fort McAllister was tested 7 times during the Civil War. The first assault began in 1862 when the Confederate ship, the CSS Nashville, was being pursued by the Union blockade ship. The CSS Nashville sailed up the Oakestry looking to be protected by Fort McAllister's artillery. The CSS anchored just upstream, and as the Union ships bombed the fort, the earthen walls swallowed up the cannonballs, keeping the Union ships at bay. The Union forces were determined to capture the fort and the SS Nashville so they could attack a total of 4 times over the several months. Fort McAllister suffered minimal damage and a few casualties. The Union forces weren't going to retreat that easily. In 1863, the Union returned. This time, it was the USS Montauk that showed up for redemption. The Montauk was ironically was an iron-cold battleship outfitted with 11-inch and 15-inch cannons, among the largest used in the war. The Montauk also brought several wooden ships for backup. The Union forces came with a few hundred feet of dam in the river. The Montauk began shelling Fort McAllister for 5 hours, landing over 450 strikes on the fort. The Confederates fired back, striking Montauk 15 times, but causing minor damage. The fort sustained some damage, but was quickly repaired. The Montauk came back a month later, bombing Fort McAllister for several hours again. The attack was unsuccessful, except that Major John B. Milley was decapitated by a shell that recoiled off one of the fort's cannons. The McAllister landed 48 strikes on the Montauk, but failed to cause serious damage. None of the Confederates lost the Montauk, but none of the Confederates lost the CSS Nashville. The Montauk then returned the 3rd time and again shelling Fort McAllister for nearly 8 hours. The Confederate soldiers had their second unusually casualty when their beloved mascot Tomcat was hit by a stray round while playfully dodging bombs and to entertain the soldiers as he usually did. Despite losing their hype man, the soldiers of Fort McAllister were able to hold their position. That was until General Sherman arrived at the Georgia coast on his march to the sea. Like the old Fort Jackson several miles north, Fort McAllister was built to defend against, against wartime attacks. It was defenseless against the ground-based and armies. General Sherman sent General William B. Hassan with a salute of about 4,000 men to take the fort. The Confederates were vastly outnumbered, having the force of about 230 men. Fort was taken in about 15 minutes in a bloody close quarter battle that saw lots of hand-to-hand combat. Shortly afterward, the 10,000 soldiers guarding the city of Savannah surrendered to General Sherman's army, ending the march to the sea. The numerous battles and bloodshed from the fort left behind piles of bodies, and the spirits of those men still live within the confines. Tourists and staff have seen shadow people and have had residual memories of the battle fought at Fort McAllister. The battles were bloody, especially Confederates' last stand at the fort. It was close-quarter combat. Heads were cracked open with muskets, and many were shot near point-blank range. The decapitated ghost of Major Billy still roamed the fort. His frightening appearance has sent many tourists running. He tends to appear next to a cannon where he was decapitated by a sharpel. His appearance is often accompanied by icy cold air, which envelops the observer. Other wounded soldiers have been seen around the fort. Some are missing an arm, others are laced with bullet wounds, and a few have their heads smashed in. A ghost of Tomcat, the Confederate mascot for Fort McAllister, appears as the ghost of a small black cat. Many have seen the phantom feline running through the fort, only to disappear when they try to catch up to it. The cat also tends to rub up against the legs of unsuspecting visitors before vanishing and leaving the tourists with several unanswered questions. In the 1930s, Henry Ford acquired the fort and sought to restore to its former appearance. He asked the men doing the restoration work to spend time at night at the Fort McAllister to prevent looting and vandalism. Tourists they reluctantly agreed. According to the men, they would all hear strange sounds at night, like the sounds of motors firing, soldiers yelling out commands, and wounded soldiers begging for help. Many of the men left and never returned. Savannah has seen some action, and its streets covered in blood. Whether it's from numerous wars, the yellow fever, or slaves being worked to death, the city has a dark past. All over the city are graveyards and cemeteries that have long since been paved over and built on. From the very from the African American burial grounds, disrespectfully named after the pro-Confederate advocates, to the old Jewish cemetery, which now sits under Old West 4th Avenue. There also are Muscarine burial grounds underneath the entire historic district. Thank you for watching my channel and videos. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I am Haunting Girl, and I'll spook you later. Until next time, pleasant dreams.